The thing about luxury is that it demands perfection. And perfection, Olivia Chen had learned over 3 years of cleaning Manhattan's most expensive homes, was absolutely exhausting. She stood in the marble lobby of the Rothmore Tower, clutching her supply caddy with white-knuckled fingers, trying to steady her breathing. The text from her supervisor had come at 6 that morning. Emergency placement, penthouse level. Client is extremely particular. Do not mess this up. Mrs. Pemberton, the regular housekeeper, had called in with the flu, and somehow Olivia had drawn the short straw. She'd wanted to refuse. She had 4 other appointments that day, and Maya's tuition payment was due in 72 hours. But the pay for a single day at the Rothmore penthouse equaled a week of her regular jobs, and desperation had a way of making decisions for you. The elevator ride to the 42nd floor felt like ascending into another atmosphere, one where the air was thinner and mistakes cost more than she made in a month. When the doors opened directly into the penthouse, because of course there was a private elevator, Olivia stepped into a world that looked like it had been designed by someone who had a personal vendetta against color. Everything was white, blindingly, sterile, unforgivingly white. White marble floors that reflected the floor-to-ceiling windows. White leather furniture that looked like it had never been sat on. White walls decorated with abstract art in shades of cream and pearl. Even the grand piano in the corner was white. Olivia set down her caddy and pulled out the detailed instruction sheet Mrs. Pemberton had apparently left for whoever replaced her. The list was 3 pages long. She scanned it, her eyes widening with each line. Dust baseboards with microfiber cloth, moving in the direction of the wood grain. Clean windows with distilled water only, no streaks permitted. Kitchen counters must be sanitized with specific product, found in cabinet under sink, label facing forward when returned. And there, at the bottom of page 2, master bedroom sheets must be changed on Thursdays, replaced with set from linen closet, second shelf, left side. Handle with care, imported silk. It was Thursday. Olivia made her way through the penthouse like she was defusing a bomb, touching as little as possible, leaving everything exactly as she found it. The kitchen was immaculate, suggesting its owner rarely cooked. The living room felt more like a showroom than a space where anyone actually lived. There were no photographs, no personal items, nothing that suggested a human being with a history or hobbies or heart actually resided here. Just perfection. Cold, lonely perfection. The master bedroom was at the end of a long hallway, and when Olivia pushed open the door, she understood immediately why the pay was so high. This wasn't just a bedroom. It was a sanctuary of control, every element precisely placed. The bed was enormous, with a pristine white headboard and those infamous silk sheets pulled tight enough to bounce a quarter off. The bedside tables were matching chrome and glass, each holding a single item, a lamp on one side, a book on the other. Not books. A book. Singular. As if even reading material had to be rationed and regulated. She approached the bed cautiously, gathering the sheets as instructed. They felt like water in her hands, impossibly smooth and cool. She could only imagine what they cost. Actually, no, she couldn't imagine it. That was the problem with this world. The numbers stopped making sense, stopped corresponding to hours worked or sacrifices made. These sheets probably cost more than her entire month's rent. As she pulled the fitted sheet from the corner, she noticed the right bedside table wobbling slightly. It was barely perceptible. But Olivia's eye for detail had been honed by years of this work. She knelt down, peering underneath. One of the legs was slightly shorter than the others, probably a manufacturing defect that had somehow escaped notice in this temple of perfection. She could fix it. Should fix it. Wasn't that part of the service? She went back to her caddy, retrieved a small folded piece of cardboard, the kind of improvised solution she'd used dozens of times, and returned to the bedroom. As she lifted the table to slide the cardboard under the short leg, she noticed a bottle on its surface. Wine. Red wine. The expensive kind, with a label in French and a vintage year that probably predated her birth. It was open, only a glass or two missing, sitting there like a landmine she hadn't noticed. Everything happened in slow motion and all at once. The table lifted. The bottle shifted. Olivia lunged for it. Her fingers grazed the glass, but instead of catching it, she knocked it directly onto the bed. The wine arced through the air in a perfect crimson stream, splashing across those impossible white sheets like blood on fresh snow. No, 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 no. Olivia grabbed the bottle, now half empty, and set it on the floor with shaking hands. The stain was spreading, seeping into the silk, darkening as she watched. She ran to the bathroom, grabbed towels, white, of course, everything was white, and pressed them against the stain, blotting frantically. The wine soaked through immediately. She tried water. That made it worse, spreading the red outward in a pale pink halo. She remembered something about salt. Or was it club soda? Her mind raced through every cleaning trick she'd ever learned, but silk was delicate and red wine was merciless. And the combination was a disaster that no amount of panicking could fix. She was on her knees on the bed, scrubbing at the stain with a damp cloth, when she heard the elevator doors open. Her blood turned to ice. He wasn't supposed to be home. The schedule said he had meetings until 7. It was barely 2 in the afternoon. She froze, cloth in hand, staring at the ruined sheets like they might somehow repair themselves if she wished hard enough. Footsteps in the hallway. Confident, quick, coming closer. Mrs. Pemberton? The voice was deep, clipped, carrying the kind of authority that came from years of being obeyed without question. I need you to reschedule my 4 o'clock. Something's come up and Alexander Rothmore appeared in the doorway and stopped mid-sentence. He was younger than Olivia had expected, maybe mid-30s, with dark hair and darker eyes that were currently taking in the scene before him. With an expression that started as confusion and rapidly shifted to something much colder. He wore a suit that probably cost more than her car, and his face had the kind of sharp, angular features that belonged on magazine covers or in boardrooms where billion-dollar deals were made or broken. Those dark eyes moved from Olivia to the bed to the wine bottle on the floor and back to Olivia. The temperature in the room dropped about 20 degrees. "Who are you?" he asked, his voice dangerously quiet. "And what have you done to my bed?" Olivia scrambled off the mattress, nearly tripping over her own feet. "Mr. Rothmore, I'm so sorry. I'm Olivia Chen, from Prestige Home Services. Mrs. Pemberton is sick, and I was sent to cover her shift, and I was just changing the sheets like the instructions said. And I noticed the table was wobbling, so I tried to fix it. And the wine bottle, I didn't see it, and I knocked it over, and I've been trying to clean it. But the stain won't come out. And stop." He held up one hand, and Olivia's rambling explanation died in her throat. He walked into the room slowly, examining the damage with the focus of a surgeon assessing a wound. When he reached the bed, he ran one finger along the edge of the stain, then looked at that finger as if the wine had personally offended him. "Do you have any idea how much these sheets cost?" It was clearly a rhetorical question, but Olivia shook her head anyway. "They were custom-made in Italy by a textile house that's been in operation since the Renaissance. The silk comes from a specific region, processed using traditional methods. They took 4 months to produce. He said all of this in the same tone someone might use to describe a death in the family. They cost $12,000. The number hit Olivia like a physical blow. My $12,000. For sheets. For something you slept on. She'd known they were expensive, but that number transcended expensive and entered the realm of obscene. That was Maya's entire semester tuition. That was 6 months of rent. That was her car payment for a year. "I'll pay for them," she heard herself say, even though the words felt hollow. "I'll pay you back, every cent. I just need time. I'll set up a payment plan. You'll pay me back?" Alexander repeated. And there was something almost amused in his tone, though his expression remained glacial. "At what rate? How long would it take you to earn $12,000? The question was humiliating because they both knew the answer. At her current rate, working full-time, after paying for rent and food and Maya's expenses, it would take her the better part of a year, maybe longer. "I don't know," Olivia admitted, hating how small her voice sounded. "But I will. I made this mistake, and I take responsibility for it." Alexander studied her for a long moment, his dark eyes unreadable. Then he pulled out his phone and typed something quickly. "Sit down," he said, gesturing to the white chair in the corner. "I should really... sit down." It wasn't a request. Olivia sat perching on the edge of the chair like she might need to run at any moment. Alexander remained standing, scrolling through his phone, occasionally glancing at her. The silence stretched out, uncomfortable and suffocating. She could hear her own heartbeat, could feel sweat gathering at the base of her spine despite the perfectly climate-controlled air. Finally, he spoke. "Tell me about yourself." The question caught her off guard. "What? You said your name is Olivia Chen. Tell me about yourself. Why are you working for a cleaning service?" It felt like a trap, but Olivia didn't know how to refuse. "I've been with Prestige for 3 years. Before that, I worked in hospitality. I'm good at what I do. I take pride in my work." "That's what you do?" I asked why. Olivia's jaw tightened. This felt invasive, like he was trying to strip away her dignity along with demanding payment for his stupid expensive sheets. But something in his gaze suggested he wouldn't let this go. "I have a younger sister, Maya. She's in college studying graphic design. Our parents died 5 years ago. Car accident. I'm putting her through school." Something flickered across Alexander's face, too quick to identify. "And cleaning houses pays for college tuition?" "Multiple jobs pay for college tuition," Olivia corrected, meeting his eyes. "I work 7 days a week. I make it work." Clearly not well enough if you're one accident away from financial disaster. The words stung because they were true. Olivia stood up, anger finally overtaking fear. "Look, I apologized. I offered to pay you back. What else do you want from me? Do you want me to grovel? Do you want me to beg? I made a mistake and I'm sorry. But that doesn't give you the right to tear apart my entire life." Alexander's eyebrows rose slightly, the first real expression she'd seen from him. "Sit down." "No." Olivia crossed her arms. "I'll stand, thanks. You don't get to order me around like I'm a servant in some Victorian novel. I'm a professional who had an accident. A really expensive accident, yes, but an accident. And I will make it right. But I won't let you treat me like I'm worthless." The silence that followed was different from before. Alexander looked at her like he was seeing her for the first time, really seeing her. Then, unexpectedly, he smiled. It wasn't a warm smile, but it was something other than the ice wall he'd been projecting. Mrs. Pemberton never talks back to me, he said. Maybe she should. The smile widened fractionally. My assistant is on maternity leave. She'll be gone for 3 months. I've been managing on my own, but it's been challenging. I need someone organized, detail-oriented, and apparently willing to speak their mind. Olivia frowned, not following. What does that have to do with your sheets? You're going to work off your debt, Alexander said, as if this was obvious. 1 month. You'll be my personal assistant. I'll pay you triple your current rate, and at the end of the month, we'll consider the sheets paid for. I have other jobs, other clients. I'll cover what you would have made. Plus the triple rate. You'll come out significantly ahead. Olivia's mind raced, calculating. Triple her rate, plus compensation for lost income, for a month. That would cover Maya's tuition, catch her up on bills, maybe even build a small emergency fund. But living here? Working for this man who looked at her like she was a problem to be solved? Why? She asked. Why would you do this? Because I need help, and you need money, and this solves both problems. He said it like it was a business transaction, nothing more. Plus, you ruined my sheets. This seems equitable. I won't live here, Olivia said firmly. I'll work during the day, but I go home at night. Non-negotiable, Alexander countered. I need someone available around the clock. I work odd hours, and I need assistance at those odd hours. There are 4 guest rooms. You can choose whichever one you like. They all have private bathrooms and locks on the doors, if you're concerned about safety. It's not about safety. It's about boundaries. We'll establish boundaries, but this is the offer. Take it or leave it. He pulled out his phone again. I can have my lawyer draft something right now. We'll make it official, everything in writing. You'll be legally protected, and I'll guarantee your pay regardless of whether you complete the full month. Olivia wanted to refuse. Every instinct told her this was a bad idea, and that working for this cold, controlling man would be a nightmare. But that number kept echoing in her head. Triple rate. For a month. Financial breathing room for the first time in 5 years. 1 month, she said slowly. And then I'm free to go. No questions asked. 1 month, Alexander confirmed. I'll have the contract to you within the hour. Olivia thought about Maya's tuition bill, sitting unpaid on her kitchen table. She thought about the stack of overdue notices she'd been ignoring. She thought about what it might feel like to not choose between groceries and gas for once. Fine, she said. 1 month, but I have conditions. Name them. I get 1 day off per week to visit my sister. My phone stays with me at all times in case she needs me. And if at any point I feel uncomfortable or unsafe, I walk away at no penalties. Alexander nodded. Agreed. The guest room is second door on the left. I suggest you bring your things tonight. We start tomorrow morning at 6. 6 in the morning? I'm an early riser, he said, already moving toward the door. Oh, and Olivia, the sheets can be thrown away. I'll order new ones. He left her standing there in his bedroom, surrounded by white walls and white furniture and ruined, red-stained sheets, wondering what exactly she'd just agreed to. Through the windows, the city stretched out 42 stories below, glittering in the afternoon sun. It looked beautiful from up here. Clean, perfect, uncomplicated. Olivia knew better. She'd just trapped herself in a gilded cage, and she had exactly 1 month to survive it. She pulled out her phone and called Maya. Hey, Liv. Her sister's voice was bright. How cheerful. How's your day going? Olivia looked at the wine-stained sheets, then at the pristine white room, then out at the impossible city below. Would you believe me if I said I just got a live-in position with a CEO? What? Are you serious? Unfortunately, yes. I'll explain everything tonight. But Maya? Olivia's voice softened. Your tuition's covered. We're going to be okay. After she hung up, Olivia walked to the window and pressed her palm against the cool glass. Somewhere down there was her real life. Her tiny apartment, her other clients, her normal problems. Up here was something else entirely. Something that scared her more than she wanted to admit. Alexander Rothmore had trapped her in his perfect white tower. And for the next 30 days, she was going to have to figure out how to breathe in air this thin. The wine stain on the sheets had dried to a deep burgundy, almost black. Some stains, Olivia thought, looking at it, don't wash out. Some mistakes change everything. She just hoped this one wouldn't destroy her in the process. The guest room was, predictably, white. Olivia stood in the doorway at 9 that evening, her 2 suitcases at her feet, staring at what would be her home for the next month. White walls, white bedding, white curtains. The only color came from the city lights streaming through the floor-to-ceiling windows, painting everything in shades of gold and shadow. The room was beautiful in an impersonal way, like a luxury hotel suite designed by someone who'd forgotten that people had emotions. She'd spent the afternoon moving through her apartment like a ghost. She's packing the essentials while Maya peppered her with questions. Her sister had been suspicious at first. This sounds like the setup for a true crime documentary, Liv. But Olivia had shown her the contract Alexander's lawyer had emailed over. It was thorough, professional, and heavily weighted in Olivia's favor. Whatever else Alexander Rothmore might be, he apparently wasn't trying to take advantage of her. At least, not legally. Now, standing in this sterile white room, Olivia wasn't so sure. There was something unsettling about this much perfection, this much control. It felt like living inside someone's obsessive-compulsive disorder. She unpacked quickly, hanging her modest work clothes in the vast closet that could have held 10 times what she owned. When she ventured back into the main living area, she found Alexander at the dining table, laptop open, surrounded by papers. He'd changed out of his suit into dark jeans and a black sweater, but his posture remained rigid, focused. He didn't look up when she entered. I made a schedule for tomorrow, he said, eyes still on his screen. It's on the kitchen counter. We'll start with breakfast at 6, then go over my calendar for the week. I have a board meeting at 9, so I'll need my presentation materials organized and ready. The printer is in the office, second door on the right. I'll need 3 copies, spiral-bound, color for the graphs. Olivia picked up the schedule. It was typed, single-spaced, and accounted for every 15-minute increment of the day. You made this tonight? I make one every night. He finally looked up, and in the softer lighting, his features seemed less harsh, more tired. I find that structure prevents chaos. Structure prevents life, Olivia muttered, scanning the document. There was no break for lunch, no time built in for anything except work and more work. Excuse me? She'd said it louder than intended. Too late to back down now. Your schedule. There's no lunch break. No time for anything except work. I eat at my desk. That's not healthy. Alexander's expression hardened slightly. I didn't hire you to critique my lifestyle choices. You didn't hire me at all. I'm working off a debt, remember? Olivia set down the schedule. And if I'm going to be your assistant, I'm going to assist you properly. That includes making sure you don't work yourself into an early grave. So tomorrow, we're adding a lunch break. 30 minutes. Non-negotiable. She expected him to argue, to pull rank, to remind her who was in charge here. Instead, he studied her with that same appraising look from earlier, like she was a puzzle he was trying to solve. 30 minutes, he finally said. But I'm working through it. 20 minutes, Olivia countered. And you actually eat, not just stare at your computer screen while food grows cold next to you. The corner of his mouth twitched. Almost a smile, but not quite. You're very bossy for someone who ruined my sheets. You're very controlling for someone who claims to need help. This time, he did smile. Small, barely there, but real. Get some rest, Olivia. 6 comes early. She returned to her white room, closed the door, and immediately called Maya. I think I'm working for a robot, she whispered into the phone. A very handsome, very damaged robot. Maya's laugh echoed through the speaker. Give it time, Liv. Maybe you'll find the on switch for his humanity. I'm not here to fix him, Olivia insisted. I'm here to work off a debt and get out. Sure, Maya said, in that knowing tone of younger sisters everywhere. Whatever you say. But as Olivia lay in the unfamiliar bed, staring at the city lights dancing across the white ceiling, she wondered if her sister might be right to be skeptical. There was something about Alexander Rothmore that didn't add up. All this control, all this perfection. It had to be protecting something, hiding something. And despite herself, despite every logical reason not to care, Olivia found herself curious about what lay beneath that carefully constructed surface. The next morning came brutally early. Olivia dragged herself from bed, showered in the marble bathroom that was bigger than her entire apartment's sleeping area, and emerged to find Alexander already in the kitchen, staring at an expensive espresso machine with an expression of profound frustration. Mrs. Pemberton usually makes the coffee, he said without preamble. You don't know how to use your own coffee maker? Olivia tried not to sound too amused. It has 17 settings and no clear instructions. He stepped aside. I don't suppose this is in your skill set? Olivia examined the machine. It was absurdly overcomplicated, the kind of thing designed for people with too much money and too much time. But the basic principles were the same as any espresso maker. She had it running within 2 minutes, the rich scent of coffee filling the pristine kitchen. Milk? She asked. Black. 2 shots. She made his coffee, then made her own with milk and sugar. When she handed him the cup, their fingers brushed briefly. His were cold, she noticed, like he wasn't generating enough heat on his own. They sat at the breakfast bar. Alexander had grudgingly agreed that eating standing up was uncivilized, and went over his schedule. The board meeting was about a potential acquisition, something technical involving software integration that went over Olivia's head. But she took notes, organized the presentation materials, and managed to get him out the door by 8:30. Then she was alone in the penthouse, and the silence was deafening. She spent the morning familiarizing herself with Alexander's systems. Everything was labeled, organized, color-coded. His closet was arranged by garment type, then by color, then by season, and his office files were alphabetized and cross-referenced. His kitchen pantry looked like a grocery store display, every label facing forward, every item in its designated spot. It was exhausting just looking at it. Around noon, her phone rang, an unknown number. She answered cautiously. Olivia? This is Derek Mason, Alex's CFO. He asked me to check in, make sure you're settling in okay. The voice was warm, friendly, completely unlike Alexander's controlled tones. I'm fine, thanks. Still learning the systems? Yeah, Alex loves his systems. There was affection in Derek's voice, the kind that came from long friendship. "Listen, I'm coming by around 6 for dinner. Alex doesn't know it yet, but I'm imposing anyway. It'll be good for you to have another face around. He can be intense. That's one word for it." Derek laughed. "He grows on you, like a very sophisticated fungus. See you at 6. The call left Olivia feeling slightly better. At least someone in Alexander's orbit seemed human. She spent the afternoon organizing his incoming mail, responding to non-urgent emails, and rescheduling 3 appointments he'd apparently forgotten about. When Alexander returned at 5:30, looking exhausted and irritated, she had dinner in the oven. Nothing fancy, just chicken and vegetables, but actual food requiring actual chewing. "What's that smell?" he asked, loosening his tie. "Food. Derek's coming at 6. He called earlier." Alexander's jaw tightened. "He invited himself, you mean? He seems nice." "He's persistent." But there was no real annoyance in his tone. If anything, he seemed resigned, like this was a familiar pattern. Derek arrived exactly at 6, and was a tall black man with an easy smile and the kind of relaxed confidence that came from being genuinely comfortable in his own skin. He shook Olivia's hand warmly, then pulled Alexander into a brief hug that the CEO clearly didn't know what to do with. Over dinner, Olivia watched the dynamic between them. Derek talked easily, telling stories about board meetings and office politics, while Alexander listened with the intensity of someone who'd forgotten how to simply enjoy conversation. But there were moments, small, fleeting, where Alexander's expression softened, where something like genuine affection crossed his face. "So, Olivia," Derek said, pouring wine that definitely didn't cost $12,000. "Alex tells me you're helping out while Jennifer's on leave." "Something like that." Olivia glanced at Alexander, who was focused intently on his chicken. "He also told me about the sheets." Derek's eyes sparkled with barely suppressed laughter. "Italian silk, 4-month waiting period, priceless family heirloom vibes?" "They weren't an heirloom," Alexander said stiffly. "They cost more than my first car, man. They were an heirloom to someone." Derek turned back to Olivia. "Don't let him guilt you. Those sheets were ridiculous. I told him when he bought them that nobody needs to sleep on something worth more than most people's monthly rent." "They were quality craftsmanship," Alexander insisted. "They were a symptom," Derek countered gently. And suddenly the conversation wasn't light anymore. "Alex, you've been doing this for years. Collecting perfect things, building this perfect space, controlling every variable. But you can't control everything. Us, and you definitely can't control people. I'm not trying to control. You made a schedule for Olivia that accounts for every 15 minutes of her day." Alexander's gaze flicked to Olivia, something defensive in his eyes. "Structure helps productivity." "Structure helps you feel safe," Derek corrected. "Which is fine, man. We all have our coping mechanisms. But Olivia's not Mrs. Pemberton. She's going to push back, and you're going to have to let her." The silence that followed was heavy. Olivia watched Alexander's jaw work, watched him struggle with something internal. Finally, he said quietly, "I know I can be difficult." "You're not difficult," Olivia said, surprising herself. "You're just scared." Both men looked at her. She hadn't meant to say it aloud, but now that she had, she might as well commit. "Everything here is controlled because you're afraid of chaos." "But chaos is just life, Mr. Rothmore, and you can't live if you're too busy protecting yourself from it." Alexander stood abruptly. "I need to work." He left the table, disappeared into his office, Close the door. Derek sighed. That went well. Did I overstep? No. Derek leaned back, studying her. You might be the first person besides me who's called him on it. His grandmother raised him after his parents died. She was cold, exacting. She believed that emotional control and professional success were the same thing. She died when Alex was 22, and he's been trying to prove her right ever since. That's incredibly sad. Yeah. But maybe having someone around who won't accept his walls will help. He needs that, even if he doesn't know it yet. Derek stood, and we started clearing plates. Give him time. Under all that ice, there's someone worth knowing. After Derek left, Olivia knocked on Alexander's office door. No response. She knocked again. Come in. He was at his desk, papers spread everywhere, laptop open to multiple windows. But he wasn't working. He was just sitting there, staring at nothing. I'm sorry if I overstepped, Olivia said. You didn't. He rubbed his face, suddenly looking much older than his 34 years. Derek's right. I do try to control everything. It's just easier that way. Easier than what? Than being disappointed. The words came out quiet, honest. When everything is perfect, there's no room for things to go wrong. Olivia moved into the room, sat in the chair across from his desk. But things always go wrong, Mr. Rothmore. That's life. I spill wine on expensive sheets. You forget appointments. People get sick. Deals fall through. You can't schedule away the hard stuff. You can try. You can exhaust yourself trying, she corrected. When's the last time you did something just because you enjoyed it? Not because it was productive or necessary or part of a plan, but just because it made you happy? Alexander considered this for a long moment. I don't remember. That's a problem. I know. He met her eyes, and for the first time, she saw past the ice to something vulnerable underneath. I don't know how to be any other way. Then maybe that's what we work on this month, Olivia said, along with whatever else you need help with. Maybe I teach you how to be a little less perfect. That sounds terrible. She smiled. It probably will be, but I'm betting it's better than this. Something shifted in his expression. Not quite a smile, but close. You're very determined to fix me. I'm not trying to fix you. I'm trying to show you that you're not broken. The words hung between them, weighted with meaning neither of them was quite ready to acknowledge. Alexander looked away first, back to his papers, but Olivia could see the tension in his shoulders had eased slightly. Good night, Mr. Rothmore. It's Alexander, he said as she reached the door. If you're going to critique my lifestyle choices and reorganize my schedule, you should probably use my first name. Good night, Alexander. Good night, Olivia. She returned to her white room, but it felt slightly less sterile now. Like maybe, just maybe, she was beginning to understand the man who'd built this carefully controlled world. And more concerning, she was beginning to care about what happened to him. Outside, the city glittered with a million points of light, each one representing someone's story, someone's struggle, someone's small triumph. Olivia pressed her hand against the window and made a silent promise. 1 month. She'd give this 1 month, help Alexander as much as he'd let her, and then walk away. But even as she thought it, she knew it might already be too late for walking away cleanly. Some stains went deeper than silk sheets. Some started changing you the moment they made contact. 3 weeks into her month at the penthouse, Olivia woke to the sound of thunder rumbling across the Manhattan skyline. She sat up in bed, heart racing, momentarily disoriented. And the storm was distant still but growing closer, dark clouds rolling in from the west and swallowing the morning sun. Lightning flickered somewhere over the Hudson River, and her hands started to shake. She hated thunder, had hated it since she was 8 years old, caught outside during a freak summer storm while her parents were shopping. A lightning strike had hit a transformer 2 blocks away, and the explosion had sent young Olivia running, terrified, until she'd found her mother's arms. That fear had never quite left her, even after her parents were gone, especially after they were gone. Thunder now meant vulnerability, meant being alone with terror and no one to make it better. By the time she'd showered and dressed, the storm was directly overhead. Rain lashed against the floor-to-ceiling windows, and thunder cracked loud enough to rattle the glass. Olivia made it to the kitchen on unsteady legs, focusing on the familiar routine of making coffee. Control what you can control. That's what Alexander always said, though he didn't know she'd adopted his mantra. Speaking of Alexander, he emerged from his bedroom looking uncharacteristically disheveled, hair uncombed, wearing sweatpants and a t-shirt instead of his usual, impeccable attire. In 3 weeks, she'd never seen him in anything but suits or carefully coordinated casual wear. This felt intimate, seeing him rumpled and human. Storm knocked out power to the office building, he said, going straight for the coffee she'd made. We're working from home today. I need to set up video calls in the office, and I'll need you to... He stopped, really looking at her for the first time. Are you all right? Fine. The word came out too quickly. Just don't love storms. Thunder crashed again, closer, and Olivia flinched despite herself. Alexander's expression shifted into something she'd come to recognize over the past weeks. Focused concern, like she was a problem he needed to solve, but also genuinely cared about solving. It's just weather, he said, but his tone was gentler than usual. Statistically, the odds of lightning striking this building are... I know the statistics don't matter when you're scared. Olivia wrapped her hands around her coffee mug, using the warmth to ground herself. It's not rational. Trust me, I'm aware. Alexander set down his own mug and did something unexpected. He pulled out his phone, tapped a few times, and suddenly music filled the penthouse. Something classical, orchestral, loud enough to mostly drown out the thunder. Better? He asked. It was better. Not perfect, but better. Olivia managed a small smile. Thank you. I'll be in the office. Come in when you're ready. No rush. He left her there, and Olivia felt something warm unfold in her chest. 3 weeks ago, Alexander would have simply told her to push through it, to focus on work. Now he was playing music to help her cope. It was a small thing, but it meant everything. The past 3 weeks had been full of small things. Alexander still made his detailed schedules, but now they included lunch breaks, where they actually sat together and talked. He still needed everything organized perfectly, but he'd stopped criticizing when Olivia's methods differed from his. And slowly, almost imperceptibly, the penthouse had started to change, or there was a plant now on the kitchen windowsill. Olivia had brought it the second week, ignoring Alexander's protests that it would require maintenance and could potentially make a mess. There was color in the living room, a deep blue throw blanket that Olivia had draped over the white couch. There were books on the coffee table instead of just empty decorative space. The penthouse was learning to breathe, and so was Alexander. She'd watched him carefully over these weeks, learning his patterns, his tells, the way he rubbed the bridge of his nose when he was overwhelmed, the slight softening of his perpetually tight shoulders when Derek called, the rare, genuine smile that appeared when she said something that surprised him, And she'd learned about his past too, not all at once, but in fragments. The grandmother who'd raised him with military precision and no affection. The pressure to excel, to be perfect, to make the family business thrive. The loneliness of being taught that emotional connection was weakness. She'd also learned that she was in serious trouble. Somewhere between the morning coffees and the late-night conversations when Alexander couldn't sleep and would find her reading in the living room, Olivia had developed feelings that went far beyond professional courtesy. She caught herself watching him when he didn't know, memorizing the line of his jaw, the way his hands moved when he talked about something he was passionate about. She found herself caring about his well-being in a way that had nothing to do with her job and everything to do with wanting to see him happy. It was a disaster waiting to happen. She had 7 days left in her month, and then she was supposed to walk away. Clean break, debt paid, life resumed. Except her life didn't feel resumable anymore. It felt like it had split into before and after. And the after involved Alexander Rothmore in ways she hadn't planned for. Maya had noticed during their weekly dinners. "You talk about him constantly," her sister had observed last week. "Alex this, Alexander that. When was the last time you mentioned anything else?" "He's my employer," Olivia had protested weakly. "He's something," Maya agreed. "I'm just not sure employer is the right word anymore." Olivia had changed the subject, but the observation haunted her, because Maya was right. Alexander had become something else, something more, and that was terrifying. The storm raged all morning. Olivia worked from the kitchen table while Alexander took video calls in his office, both of them pretending this was normal, this casual cohabitation. Around 1, Derek video called specifically to speak with Olivia. "How's the robot doing?" he asked, grinning. "He's adapted to having a lunch break without too much complaining. Miracles do happen. Hey, listen, I wanted to ask you something. A bunch of us from the company are going out Friday night. Casual drinks thing. Think you could convince Alex to come? He never does. But maybe if you're there." "Derek, I'm just his temporary assistant." "Right. And I'm just the CFO of his company, not his best friend who's watched him live like a hermit for the past decade." Derek's expression turned serious. "Olivia, I've seen more change in him in 3 weeks than in the last 3 years. And you're good for him. So please, just come Friday. Bring your sister if you want. Make it easier for him to say yes." Olivia agreed, though she wasn't sure it was wise. Friday night meant 5 days before her month ended, 5 days before she was supposed to leave. That afternoon, during a brief lull in the storm, Alexander emerged from his office looking frustrated. "The Hendricks deal is falling apart," he said, pacing the living room. "They're getting cold feet about the integration timeline. I've spent 6 months on this acquisition, and it's going to collapse because they can't commit." Olivia watched him pace, recognizing the signs of stress spiraling into panic. "What do you think the real problem is?" "I just told you, no, the real problem, not the surface one." Alexander stopped pacing, thought about it. "They don't trust me. The CEO is old school, family business, all about personal relationships. And I'm..." He gestured at himself helplessly. "This. Cold, controlling, emotionally unavailable?" Olivia suggested. "I was going to say professional. But your version works too." She stood, moved closer. "So don't be professional with him. Be human. Tell him why this deal matters to you beyond the bottom line. Show him who you are under the suits and the schedules." "I don't know how to do that." "Yes, you do. You do it with me." The words came out before she could stop them, and suddenly they were standing too close, the air between them charged with something that had nothing to do with the storm outside. Alexander's dark eyes searched hers. "Do I?" "Yes." Her voice came out barely above a whisper. "You do it when you play music during thunderstorms. When you ask how Maya's doing. When you actually eat lunch instead of working through it. You know how to be human, Alexander. You're just scared to let anyone else see it." His hand came up, hesitated, then gently tucked a strand of hair behind her ear. The touch was brief, electric. "And if I let them see it, and they reject it anyway? Then they're idiots who don't deserve the deal." She smiled slightly. "But they won't. Because under all this," she gestured at the pristine penthouse, "you're someone worth knowing." They stood there for a moment that stretched too long, teetering on the edge of something neither of them was ready to name. Then Alexander's phone rang, shattering the moment. He stepped back, answered it, his professional mask sliding back into place. But Olivia could still feel the ghost of his touch on her skin. That night, the storm returned with renewed fury. Olivia tried to sleep, but every crack of thunder sent her heart racing. Around 2 a.m, she gave up and went to the living room, wrapped in a blanket, trying to distract herself with her phone. She didn't hear Alexander approach until he spoke. "Still awake?" She jumped, then laughed shakily. "Apparently. You too?" "I don't sleep much in general." He sat on the other end of the couch, maintaining careful distance. "The storm's supposed to pass by morning." "Good." Thunder rolled overhead, and Olivia pulled the blanket tighter. "Sorry. I know it's irrational. When I was 10, there was a huge storm," Alexander said quietly. "My parents had died 2 years before. My grandmother told me fear was weakness, that I needed to control my reactions. So I sat in my room, completely silent while thunder shook the house. I didn't cry. I didn't call out. I just sat there, being strong." He paused. "I was terrified and alone, and I've hated storms ever since, even though I'd never admit it to anyone." Olivia stared at him. "Alexander, I'm saying I understand, and you don't have to be alone with it." He moved closer, closing the distance between them, and offered his hand. Olivia took it, their fingers intertwining. They sat like that through the worst of the storm, not talking, just being present. At some point, Olivia's head found its way to Alexander's shoulder. At some point, his arm wrapped around her. And as the storm slowly faded and the city lights began to emerge from behind the clouds, neither of them wanted to move. 5 more days, Alexander said into the quiet. "Yeah. And then you leave." Olivia's chest tightened. That was the agreement. "I don't want you to go." The words came out raw, honest. "These past 3 weeks, everything's been different, better, and I don't know how to go back to the way things were before." She lifted her head to look at him. His dark eyes were vulnerable in a way she'd never seen, all his carefully constructed walls crumbling. "I don't want to go either," she admitted. "But Alexander, this can't work. We're too different. You need order and control, and I'm chaos," he finished. "Beautiful, terrifying chaos that I didn't know I needed." His hand came up to cup her face. "Olivia, I'm not good at this. I don't know how to need someone. I don't know how to let someone in. But I want to learn. With you. What if you can't? What if I try to stay and you push me away? What if you don't try and we never find out?" They were so close now, breath mingling, hearts racing for reasons that had nothing to do with storms. "This is a terrible idea," Olivia whispered. probably the worst I've ever had. You're going to drive me crazy with your schedules and your need for perfection. You're going to ruin more of my expensive things. She smiled despite the tears threatening to fall. I really am. I don't care. And then Alexander closed the distance and kissed her. It was soft at first, tentative, like he was learning the language of intimacy for the first time. But then Olivia kissed him back, pouring 3 weeks of repressed feelings into it, and something in Alexander unleashed. His hands tangled in her hair, pulling her closer. She straddled his lap, and their bodies fitting together like they'd been designed for this moment. The kiss deepened, desperate and hungry, and full of all the words neither of them knew how to say. When they finally broke apart, both breathing hard, Alexander rested his forehead against hers. "Stay," he said. "Not because of the job or the debt or any of that. Stay because you want to, because I want you to." "For how long?" "As long as you'll have me." He pulled back slightly, meeting her eyes. "I know I'm difficult. I know I have a lot to work on. But I want to try, Olivia. I want to be better. For you. For us. What about my job? My other clients? Keep them. Or don't. Or find something else entirely. I don't care what you do for work as long as you come home here at the end of the day." He hesitated. "Unless you don't want this to be home, we can get a different place. Something that's ours, not just mine. With color and plants and whatever else makes it feel like somewhere you actually want to be." Olivia laughed through the tears that were definitely falling now. "You'd give up your perfect white penthouse?" "It's not perfect. It's sterile. It took you 3 weeks to show me the difference." His thumb brushed away her tears. "I'm done living in a museum, Olivia. I want to live in a home. With you. If you'll risk it." She should say no. Should protect herself. Should remember that 3 weeks wasn't long enough to know if this could really work. But looking at Alexander, at the hope and fear and raw vulnerability in his eyes, she realized some risks were worth taking. "I'll stay," she said, "on one condition." "Anything." "No more 15-minute increment schedules for me. I get to be spontaneous. I get to ruin your organization sometimes. I get to bring chaos into your carefully controlled life." Alexander smiled, really smiled, the kind that transformed his entire face. "Deal. But I get a condition too." "Which is?" "You have to keep calling me out when I'm being a controlling robot, and you have to remind me that imperfection isn't failure." "I think I can manage that." They kissed again, softer this time, savoring it. Outside, the storm had passed, leaving the city washed clean and glittering in the pre-dawn light. Inside, something new was beginning, messy and uncertain, and nothing like the perfect life Alexander had constructed for himself. And for the first time, in longer than he could remember, Alexander Rothmore was okay with that. 3 months later, Maya Chen stood in the penthouse doorway, mouth hanging open. "What happened to the white prison?" Olivia laughed, pulling her sister inside. The penthouse was barely recognizable. The walls were now a warm gray. The couch was deep blue with throw pillows in various colors. Plants crowded the windowsills. Photos lined the shelves. Olivia and Maya, Alexander and Derek. Candid shots of life happening messily and beautifully. The kitchen had actual character now, with mismatched mugs and a coffee station that didn't require an engineering degree to operate. "Alexander happened," Olivia said. Or rather, Alexander learning to let go happened. "Where is the robot anyway?" "In the kitchen, attempting to cook." Olivia grinned at her sister's shocked expression. "I'm teaching him. He's terrible at it, but he tries. They found Alexander at the stove, frowning at a pan of vegetables that were definitely burning. His hair was messy, his sleeves rolled up, and there was a smudge of flour on his cheek. When he saw them, he grimaced. "I don't think this is supposed to be black." "Probably not," Olivia agreed, moving to rescue the vegetables. "But points for effort." Maya watched them move around each other with the easy familiarity of people who'd learned each other's rhythms. Alexander hip-checked Olivia playfully. She flicked water at him in retaliation. He stole a kiss when he thought Maya wasn't looking. Over dinner, successfully salvaged by Olivia's intervention, Maya grilled them about their plans. Olivia had enrolled in interior design courses and was already taking clients, and Alexander had promoted Derek to co-CEO and was learning to delegate. They were talking about getting a dog, which seemed to horrify and delight Alexander in equal measure. "I can't believe you domesticated him," Maya whispered to Olivia while Alexander was in the other room taking a call. "I didn't domesticate him. I just showed him it was okay to be human." Olivia smiled. "He's still working on it, but he's trying. That's what matters." When Alexander returned, he slipped an arm around Olivia's waist with the casual affection of someone who'd learned that showing care wasn't weakness. "Your sister thinks I'm domesticated," he told her. "Are you?" He considered this seriously. "I prefer to think of it as evolved." "Into what?" "Into someone who knows that wine-stained sheets weren't a disaster. They were a beginning." He kissed her temple. "Best accident that ever happened to me." Later, after Maya had left and they were cleaning up together, Olivia found the old schedule Alexander had made for her first day. 15-minute increments, every moment accounted for. She held it up. "Remember this?" Alexander took it, studied it like an artifact from another life. "I was insufferable. You were scared. I was insufferable because I was scared." He crumpled the schedule and tossed it in the recycling. "I don't need these anymore. I have something better." "Which is?" "You. And the chaos you bring. And the knowledge that imperfection is what makes life worth living." He pulled her close. "Thank you. For ruining my sheets. For refusing to leave. For teaching me that love is worth the mess." Olivia kissed him, soft and sweet and full of promise. "Thank you for being worth the risk." Outside, the city glowed with possibility. Inside, two people who'd learned to let each other in built a life together, imperfect, chaotic, and absolutely worth every stained sheet, every broken schedule, every moment of vulnerability it took to get there. Some stains, it turned out, were blessings in disguise. You just had to be brave enough to look past the mess and see the beauty underneath. Want more romance stories? If you loved Olivia and Alexander's journey from wine-stained sheets to genuine love, don't miss out on more heartwarming romance stories. Subscribe to our channel for Billionaire romance tales with heart and humor, enemies to lovers transformations, forced proximity stories that will make you swoon. Characters who feel real, flawed, nice and beautifully human. Drop a comment below. What was your favorite moment between Olivia and Alexander? Would you have stayed in the penthouse? Let's discuss. Hit that like button if you believe in second chances and love stories that develop slowly, authentically, and with plenty of chaos along the way. New stories posted every week. Because everyone deserves a love story that reminds them that perfection is overrated, and real connection is worth every messy, beautiful moment. Remember, the best love stories aren't about finding someone perfect. They're about finding someone willing to grow, change, and embrace the beautiful chaos of building a life together. See you in the next story.